Hey, how's it going? It's your boy ChiefsRaysBolts here, looking forward to round two of the Stanley Cup playoffs alongside with KCA's Raiders, Dubs, Sharks. Let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah, man, it feels like so long ago that we did the round one, preview and whatnot. But I think that's because of these crazy series, going to game seven. What was it, five game sevens?
It was
Am I right?
five game sevens, which is tied for the second most amount of game sevens in the first round of Stanley Cup playoff history. Five of the eight series went to game sevens. And so it was just a very, very entertaining round of hockey for hockey fans and just sports fans in general. The hockey gods blessed us. Although not so much the Lightning fans because of the stress, but prevailed in the end. We'll talk about it. So let's get into the first series here right away because it's the most unremarkable series of this entire bracket. The Avalanche and the Predators. That was a quick four-game sweep. I don't even
Yeah,
have any comments about that. I mean, I was saying Colorado in five. I believe that's what I said. I know it's what my bracket says, so I don't know what the history of what I said on stream was, but I definitely was figuring Colorado in five, no more. But Nashville got zero. They didn't get a single win in this entire playoff, and that's a
yeah,
clean sweep. Goodbye, good
yeah.
riddance, I guess. But Colorado is an unstoppable force, in my opinion. I don't really see how anybody stops them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I had the similar thing. I think I had them in four or five, but I think everyone knew, you know, the Avalanche were not going to lose to the Predators. I mean, the Predators barely got in the playoffs. They had a decent season. This series, I mean, like you said it well. It was definitely not super memorable. It was the first one done, and I feel like it was just all Avalanche getting, Cale Makar in that series was remarkable. Their goaltending was really good. I think in that game one, didn't they score like what, 5 goals in the first period, four or something
A
like that?
lot. I remember looking at the NHL app like 10 minutes into the game and thinking, damn, this one's over.
Yeah, I mean they had like one close game that Cale Makar got the game winner. It was just not. I mean, for the Avalanche, I think they're definitely, like you said, an unstoppable force, a team that has the capacity to make a very very deep run this year, as they did in past years. And I think so. This was an easy series for them. It was almost like a first round bye. It, just didn't seem like it was any sort of challenge for them. I mean, yeah, I think it was really just a very one sided affair.
Yeah, and their opponent in the second round, the St. Louis Blues, got past the Minnesota Wild, which I thought was one of the more evenly matched series. I guess not, because it was one of three series that didn't go to seven games. This one ended in six, and this one was kind of a surprise to me because I had Minnesota as the better team in this. I thought they would come out on top in this series, but St. Louis put them away in six, and to me, if I'm recalling the scores correctly, it was never. There might have been one or two games where it was close, but for the most part, it's like when the Wild won, it was 4-1 or 3-1, or when the Blues won, it was 5-1, 6-1. Like there was never. I don't know. The games were just they tended to be one sided. I felt like, but the Blues, they looked good against Minnesota, kind of resurging, I guess, a little bit of their 2019 Stanley Cup selves. But as far as this series going on right now, the Blues and the Avalanche, I'm sorry, St. Louis, you're a fantastic team, far better than the Predators in my eyes. But again, I don't see how anybody stops Colorado, at least not in the western side of the bracket.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think in that series, you said it well. It was the goaltending that was the issue. Marc Andre Fleury, was getting shifted in and out for Minnesota. I thought they were going to win it too. I was actually rooting for them coming out of the West. If you remember from the first stream we did, but yeah, like you said, it was St. Louis clutching up, getting wins on the road. Their captain O'Reilly, he had a pretty good series. And yeah, I mean, it's just the goaltending was the issue. And I think for that reason, against the Avalanche, I could definitely see the Avalanche in certain games running up the score on them because I feel like, when you have Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, and just such a good team like that for the Avalanche, Landeskog, you're, and you're facing a somewhat liable like goaltender, whether it be Bennington or not. I just don't see how the Blues are going to win this. I mean, I could see a sweep here. I think they are better than Nashville. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a sweep, but I'm going to be realistic here. And I think the Avalanche are going to win in 5. Because I just think the goaltending is ridiculously one-sided in this. I mean, you saw even the games that the St. Louis Blues lost against, a still very good Minnesota team. They lost like 6-2 sometimes, 4-1. It's just like very one-sided. And the games they won, they played well, but I don't think they're going to do that against the Avs.
I'm not expecting a sweep to come from this series at all. I think St. Louis can surprise people. Not in the sense that they'll beat Colorado. I don't think there's any chance that'll happen. But I think that they could put up at least a little bit of a fight. I'm thinking this one goes to 6. I'll be a little bit more bold than 5, but I think St. Louis could definitely sneak out a couple of wins in this series. And you have to remember the Colorado Avalanche in Game 1 of Round 2 against the Golden Knights last playoff. They won that game like 7-1 or 8-2. I mean, it was a blowout. It wasn't even close. They went up 2-0 in the series and then lost 4 straight to the Golden Knights. Dropped all 4 in a row, and that was it. They were done. Now, you could say, oh, well, they had the President's Trophy. And, as far as sports goes, I'm going to be honest with you. The President's Trophy is truly the only curse that I believe in, like, full-heartedly. And it's kind of hard not to when you're a Lightning fan after 2019. But the Avalanche don't have the trophy this year. They don't have the President's Trophy. They don't have that weight on their back of, oh, we have to win because everybody's expecting us to, because we were the best regular season team or whatever that case might be. But no, I think St. Louis is better than people think they are. I think they could definitely push Colorado around, but Colorado, they're without a doubt, they're going to win the series. I don't see a way they don't. Bennington had struggles in the regular season, but so far as tonight's game has gone, he's been fine. I don't know what the current score of that game is. I don't even know if it's still going on. But the Blues came out on a 1-0 lead and then just got pushed around afterwards. What was that?
Going to overtime, it's tied.
Wow. Well, all right. What I was saying was... that's actually insane to me. The Avalanche are currently outshooting the Blues 41-25, so it's pretty one-sided. They're going to have 41 seconds on the power play into overtime, so
wow.
Good luck, St. Louis. No, but the Blues are not the better team in this series on paper, whatever. They're simply not. We've known this. But if you get games like tonight, you get one lucky puck bounce and find it, put it in the back of the net, and Blues go up 1-0 in the series, you have to expect that maybe that won't be the only one, That's all I'm saying. It's like the Blues, they could surprise people. Again, not in the sense that they're going to win the series, but in the sense that, they could push it to 6 or maybe even 7. If we're being bold, they maybe even be able to push it to 7. Just all it takes is a couple of lucky bounces in close games like this one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, now looking at that, I mean, Bennington with a 9.51 save percentage tonight, I mean, that's pretty good. And I think the issue with them is he's inconsistent, but I think on the other hand, like you said, he has the capacity to play with, like, when he's good, he's really, really good. So that being said, I think it could go. I think the Blues could surprise people, but like you said, I got my money on the Avs on this one because I just think, they're determined. They're angry about the past couple of years. I mean, obviously losing to the years ago in a really, depressing way. They lost to the Sharks the year before that when they had really easily, good chance to beat us. They have a big history of being in the second round or third round and, just not being able to capitalize. And I think for that reason, they are very determined. So yeah, definitely agree.
Yeah. Now I don't want to get ahead of myself looking forward to like the actual Stanley Cup final itself.
Yeah.
But I am going to a little bit. I don't really care. I think the Avalanche, it's their cup to lose. I think the Avalanche will get there, and I think that I still believe that they will win it. Even if the final ends up being Tampa versus Colorado, and now it's my team playing against the team that I'm saying is going to win it all, I'm still going to stay true to my word. I still think the Avalanche are better than the Lightning. I think the Avalanche would win that. But again, won't get ahead of myself here because it's just hypothetical. We're still in the final 8 teams. There's a lot of hockey to be played over the next month. but
right?
I have Avalanche in 6 over St. Louis.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that's definitely a good prediction there.
Calgary and Dallas was entertaining. It was one of the 5 Game 7 series. And it's the first Game 7 that we're talking about here. So
Yeah.
let's just jump into it. So the Calgary Flames were very much better than the Dallas Stars in this series. They just were. The only
Yeah.
reason Dallas stayed in this series till a Game 7 was because of the netminder. Jake Ottinger, insane. Yeah. Insane, especially in that Game 7. I'm trying to find the stats from it because it is just remarkable what Ottinger was able to what he was able to do in the Game 7 against Calgary. But Calgary from the beginning was clearly the better team, and it's just kind of remarkable to me that it even went 7.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, this series was so interesting because literally every game, I guess aside from a couple, was very, very close. I mean, the Stars definitely could have stole this series. And Ottinger, I mean, I hardly knew who he was. I knew him from when the Sharks played him in the regular season, but I mean, man, that guy, definitely blew me away. In that Game 7, the walk-off goal for Calgary at home to win the series, that's a good feeling from him. But, I mean, I think the Flames, I think when we talk about the Oilers series, it'll be a similar story. But I think, these good teams going into the playoffs, like very good teams, are overly confident. And I think, like you said, I think the Flames are a much better team on paper and a much better team during this regular season. And I think they should have won this series. I think they should have won games by more goals too. I think there shouldn't have been games where they won
Absolutely.
by a lot of goals. But at the end of the day, they didn't capitalize. At Game 1, they lost 1-0. They lost 2-0 in Game 2. I mean, it's very low scoring to start. And the next couple of games were more high scoring. But Ottinger, I mean, that guy definitely blew me away. And I just think for that reason, I think that was sort of why the Flames weren't kind of up to the level that I thought they would be. But I think this next round against the Oilers is going to be really interesting because these teams have history. It's the Battle of Alberta, and I think it's going to be a really good series, especially if they can kind of overcome like the mistakes they made in the first series against Dallas.
Going back to Jake Ottinger, just his series stats hit a .954 save percentage, 1.81 goals against average. So, like, on average, he's only giving up, like, a little bit less than 2 goals a game. That's insane. Had 1 shutout. And then in Game 7, he had 64 saves and a .955 save percentage. I mean, that's just that's unreal. That is unreal. Yeah. And if you see the game winner in overtime from Calgary, Johnny Gaudreau, I think, scored it. It was just perfectly placed. It was this little 2-inch window that could not have been shot better. That was the only way that you were going to get past Ottinger in that game.
He was unlucky.
And his team did not help him out at all. I mean, in overtime and in the third period, it was all Calgary. It was all Calgary pushing around Dallas like they were a bunch of little babies. Like it was insane. But series over. Now it's Calgary versus Edmonton, and now Edmonton, they got past LA in Game 7. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is probably my least paid attention to series of round 1. I didn't really take too many looks over there. I didn't really care too much. But
yeah,
the Kings were a surprising team to me this year because they've just kind of sucked the last couple of seasons, and so for them to sneak in there, it was a little bit interesting to me.
Yeah, I did pay attention to the series quite a bit only because the Kings are California, and it was like, oh, it'd be cool if, even though Sharks are rivals with them, it would be cool if California team like upset the Oilers, who are stacked with stars. The story of this series, and this sort of surprised me, was former Shark Evander Kane for the Oilers was just, I think he got a hat trick in this game. I think he had in the series had a hat trick, and I think he had another game with 2 goals. He was killing it. Conor McDavid had a really good series. I mean, not a surprise to many people there. Draisaitl had a really good series. However, I think they still had problems. I mean, the Kings had some really nice wins. They also sort of came back in the series. They started out slow, and then even the games they won, I wasn't super impressed with LA's production. But, I just think the Oilers, I think we're the better team, and I had them winning this. And it's funny because similar to the Minnesota series, like think about how one-sided some of these games were. There was a 6-0 finish in Game 2 for the Oilers. In Game 3, it was an 8-2 finish for the Oilers. So that's 2 games in a row where they win by 6. And then in Game 4, the Kings win 4-0. Like it's just so one-sided. So for 3 games in a row, you have the teams winning by at least 4 goals, and it was just very poor defense. I feel like for both teams, but I think Edmonton, I think they got off to a slow start with their defense, but I think honestly against the Flames are probably going to be more equipped to better defense because I think in that Game 7, I watched most of it, and the Oilers had really, really good defense and really, really good puck control against the Kings. I mean, they shut them out in Game 7, so that was impressive. And they're playing Jonathan Quick, who's sort of, I wouldn't say back to his true form, but in Game 7 he had a .951 save percentage. But Mike Smith has been out for the Oilers in those clutch games, not at the beginning of the series. So I just think, Mike Smith, he's got to step up. But I think their offense with Kane, Draisaitl, and David, I think that's behind the Avalanche, like those those lines or whatever are just very, very stacked.
It was a series clinching shutout for the Oilers in this one, defeating the Kings in Game 7 2-0. Now, talking about Conor McDavid, I mean, there's a reason hockey fans call him McJesus. He is insane. Like, his dagger goal to make it 2-0 late in the third, I mean, just the effort in that, the deke, the backhand. Oh my God! Like I watched that real time, and I was just sitting there speechless. The dude is incredible to watch. When the Oilers came to Tampa earlier in this season, I went to that game for one reason: to watch Conor McDavid, because it's just he's a generational talent. He's insane. I mean, he scored 2 goals on us, which wasn't, very fun for me, but, at least I got to say I saw him score. So,
yeah,
just an incredible player he is. But here's the thing, though. Where have the Oilers gone in the past couple of playoffs? Hardly anywhere. You want to know why? Because who do the Oilers have behind Draisaitl and McDavid? Who do they have? It's those 2 guys backpacking the entire team, or at least that's how I see it as an outsider who doesn't really follow the Oilers. But, look at the Oilers last year. They get swept in the first round of the Winnipeg Jets, a team that didn't even make the playoffs this year. They go to Game 7 against the Los Angeles Kings, a team who in the preseason wasn't even expected to make a push at the playoffs. It's like we could sit here and talk about, the Oilers, but come on. I mean, if they would have played any other of these teams, not including the Nashville Predators, probably would have lost this. Probably would have not even gone to 7.
Yeah.
McDavid and Draisaitl, they cannot backpack the entire team by themselves. And so now we move forward to the series of round 2, the Battle of Alberta. Calgary, Edmonton. Calgary's got to win this in 5 or 6, I figure.
Yeah, I got Calgary in 6. Sort of thought about this one. I think for the X factor for them is, their defense has got to play good. But I think with the Oilers, they could make this series interesting if, like you said, if they can overcome the fact that they have those 2 elite players, and then behind that, not much. I mean, Evander Kane, I know I already talked about him, and it's sort of interesting because he's sort of, re-pushing his career to where it was. In that series against the LA Kings, Evander Kane had 7 goals in 7 games. Pretty impressive. So if he can have that sort of series against the Flames, I think maybe it could make things interesting. Now, will that happen? Probably not, just because consistency is a really hard thing to do, especially considering the fact that the Flames are a lot better than the Kings. I mean, they're going from playing a team that, like you said, I don't think hardly made the playoffs, the Kings, but I think they weren't expected to make it. They're not a very stacked team. And so I think the Oilers are in for a rude awakening here. They're going to be playing a team that's a lot better than the team they've played in the first round. The Flames, I got them winning in 6. I think I'm pretty firm by that. I don't think they're definitely not going to win this, in a sweep. And I think 5 is a little bit generous. I just think because these teams were pretty close in the regular season, and this is a competitive matchup. But I think, like you said, the Oilers is just they don't their goaltending is good and they have those two good players, but besides that, it's just they're not making a push recently, and it's hard to see when they have such good talent.
Yeah, I think the Flames are a team to watch in the playoffs. I think they're one of the more talented teams, probably a top 4 remaining, if I had to be honest here.
Yeah.
And I'm just now realizing that photo you sent me to make the thumbnail. They had Pittsburgh winning that first round, so I'm like getting tripped out here because it's not the Rangers in the bracket, but
I noticed that.
It's all right. We'll I'll fix that in a bit here, but I think the Flames probably a top 3 team remaining, along with Colorado and Tampa. That's just that's the way I see it. Obviously you say I'm biased, but I think the Flames are gonna win this. I think it'll be 6. I just don't see how Edmonton can. I just don't see how Edmonton can win, man. I just don't.
Yeah. And by the way, I put an updated one in the chat. But yeah. Anyways, I just think like this series, it's gonna be competitive by all means. But it's not gonna be competitive. I just don't think, the Oilers are a very good team in the regular season. That's just how it always is. They're just like a better version of the Leafs for all I'm concerned. I mean, they'll do good in like the early stages of the playoffs, but yeah, I mean, the Flames are looking like the 2019 Flames. They're just very good this year. I mean, I think that Game 7 against the Stars, the fact that it went to Game 7 was pretty alarming, but I think I have, definitely Calgary going to the conference finals.
Yeah, I do too. So both of us, I think, safely predicting a Calgary, Colorado, Western Conference final next round.
Yeah.
On the eastern side of the bracket, we have Florida and Washington, which was an interesting series because Washington originally went up 2-1. And they were pushing Florida around and giving Florida a run for the President's Trophy winning Florida Panthers a run for their money. And Washington had every opportunity to win that series, mind you, as well. I think in Game 4 it was. I'm gonna fact check myself on this. Capitals, Panthers, Game 4. I believe. No, it might have been Game 5. Yeah, Game 5. I believe that the Capitals went up 3-0. And it was kind of looking like, wow, they're probably going to take a 3-2 lead here. And that didn't happen. Florida came back, scored 5 unanswered. But the problem with Washington was they didn't play a full 60 minutes. They would play for a period and a half, 2 periods, but they just would not finish out the game. They would start to sit back on defense, and Florida just came back. But Washington was very, in my eyes, they were very capable of upsetting the Panthers in this round. But it didn't come to that. The Capitals were up 2-1 and then lost the next 3 straight to Florida.
Man, yeah. TJ Oshie, he was carrying the Capitals. He had 6 goals in just 6 games played in that series. And, I think I soundly predicted the Panthers would win. And I mean, I don't think it was a surprise to many people they won. But as you said, after Game 1, I was like, damn, Capitals, they gave them a run for their money. They're actually playing good. And I think the thing with the Panthers...
Colorado just scored the overtime winner.
Oh, there you go.
Right now, yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
You're good. Yeah, I mean, I think with the Panthers, it's they're the sort of team, and I think it's not just Panthers, but I think sort of going back to the President's Trophy idea, it's you build up this confidence. And I think the whole idea of teams choking with the President's Trophy is they sort of relax. They think, we have the best record, we are unstoppable, and they get sort of this false sense of security. And I think sort of with the Panthers, in this series specifically, and this might happen against, we don't know. I mean, I think the Lightning and Panthers are pretty much up there as not, at least not by record, but I think matchup wise, they're pretty equal. But I think, the fact that it was the best seed in not just the Eastern Conference, but the entire NHL, and then the last seed in the East, I think the Panthers got lazy in some of these games. And even the games they won, I think they didn't play as good as I thought. I mean, I think, they had comeback wins. They had some pretty nice victories. They had good goals. But I also think, TJ Oshie, like I said, he had a really, really good series. They won in overtime. It was the Panthers won in overtime. But you look at the games they won by, except for game 2, they never won by more than like 1 or 2 goals. So I think it was 2 goals was the most they won by, except for the blowout in game 2. But with that being said, I just think, if the Panthers are going to try to make a deep playoff run, and that would start with, of course, beating the Lightning, they have to figure things out at the beginning of the game. And I think they're a very good team, but like some of these games they won, they just didn't get good starts, and the Capitals were able to take over. And it started with TJ Oshie mostly.
Back to the President's Trophy thing, I think another thing that the President's Trophy winners tend to struggle with is the fact that they have everything to lose. You get teams in the playoffs like the Kings or the Rangers where they're just happy to be there. They're young. They need that experience. They're just happy to be there. They have nothing to lose. And then you have the President's Trophy winners. They have everything to lose. You have that constant pressure on your back. We can't let people down. We got to win. And it's just in their heads. It's this stigma. But I don't know. I just was not impressed with Florida. I think if anything showed me, if there's anything that this series showed me, it's that Florida, in my eyes, just really, they're not quite built for the playoffs yet. They're just not built for the playoffs. Washington could have done so much more, I feel like, here. But Florida, they didn't look fantastic. They didn't look like the President's Trophy winners of the NHL this year. I'll just put it that way. But
I agree. Yeah.
But yeah, they go on to the second round, and they'll be meeting up with my beloved Tampa Bay Lightning for the second straight year of the Battle of Florida.
Right.
Love it. I mean, this totally goes against traditional hockey. Everybody wants Rangers and Bruins and Maple Leafs and Canadians and Wild and just all those northern cold cities, and then you get a round 2 matchup of Sunrise, Florida and Tampa Bay, Florida, and so it's just kind of it's great how that works out, and I love it. But let's see, the Maple Leafs and the Lightning. The Lightning got to round 2 by defeating the Maple Leafs in 7 games. This was a roller coaster of a series. It was, oh my god, I didn't think the Lightning were going to win this series. I really didn't. The Maple Leafs were the more skilled team. For the most part, they outplayed the Lightning. And just on paper, they have a better roster. They do. And they had a better record in the regular season this year. But for some odd reason, dude, the hockey gods hate Toronto. Maybe it's because their fan base, all they do is bitch and complain about the referees every single game, all 20 minutes of every period of every single game. Like, it's insane. I've never seen a fan base complain more about referees in my entire life. It got to a point where it's like, really, dude? Like, that you're making a fool of yourself. But in game 1 of this series, the Lightning got shut out 5-0. In game 2, the Lightning responded with a win 5-3, although I felt they still got outplayed in that game. In game 3, it was 3-2 towards the end, and then Toronto got 2 empty netters, making it 5-2. That was a little bit frustrating. Then it was followed by a 7-3 Tampa blowout, and then it was followed by the first close game of the series. It was a 3-4 final, 4-3. Toronto won. And then at this point, that was game 5, and that was not quite. So that was game 5, and for the Lightning to win this series, they have to win the next 2 in a row, something that neither of these teams have done so far in this series at this point. Neither of these teams it was every other game was every other team, or no, it was every game, it was every other team winning. And so for the Lightning to win, they had to win 2 straight. And so in game 6, they go up 2-3. What am I saying? They go up 2-0, and then they give up 3 unanswered goals. And they did this in Game 5 as well. So this was the second straight game that they had gone up 2-0. They start off the game hot, and then they give up 3 unanswered goals. 2 of those goals coming from John Tavares in the final minute of the second period. 2 goals from Toronto in the final minute. That is completely unacceptable. Completely. 1 goal in the final minute is unacceptable, much less 2. That was frustrating. The Lightning were on the brink in the third period as they were still down 3-2. But Toronto would commit 2 penalties in the span of about a minute, giving the Lightning a 2-man advantage, and Kucherov would net it to tie the game up and send it to overtime. And this was one of the most stressful games I've ever seen from the Lightning, because it's like, wow, if we lose here in overtime, that's it, this series is over. But no, Braden Point collects a rebound and puts it 5-hole on Campbell, and then the Lightning force a Game 7. And after that, I'm like, well, fantastic, awesome, great, but I think we're still going to lose, because Toronto, they're cursed. It cannot keep happening every single year. They can't keep blowing 3-2 leads. They can't keep losing Game 7s. It's just not possible. They can't do it. There's no way that it could keep going on for this crazy amount of time. Sure enough, that's exactly what happens. That's exactly what happens. In Game 7, Andrei Vasilevsky had the game of the playoffs for his personal stats, his personal, he had his best game of the playoffs in Game 7, only allowing 1 goal to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And this was, speaking of the Toronto curse, this was the first time in MLB, NHL, NBA history that a team had lost 5 consecutive series-clinching games, or whatever it was. Like, you can't tell me this team isn't cursed. That's ridiculous. How do you manage to do that? How do you manage? Let's go back to last year. How do you manage to go up 3-1 on the Canadiens, the Montreal Canadiens, and then blow 3 straight games to lose that series in 7? How do you do that? Oh my God! Like, listen, I want to feel bad for Toronto. I do. But I can't. I just can't. Their fans are such bitches. I'm sorry. I don't say that about many fan bases, but they will not shut up about the referees. And even on the Florida Panthers Twitter page today, you had Maple Leaf fans rating that Twitter account saying, "Oh, get used to the refs, Florida. We had to deal with them last." It's like, what are you doing on the Florida Panthers Twitter page, dude? Get over yourself. The refs were awful for both sides all series. It was not one-sided in the slightest. So I don't want to hear all that BS, all right? But anyways, yes, the Lightning miraculously get past the Toronto Maple Leafs in a series that I thought the Lightning really didn't have a chance in. So let me just say this. I think the Maple Leafs are the best team in the eastern side of the bracket coming into the playoffs. I truly believe that, and now that the Lightning have gotten past them, I think the road ahead is easier for the rest of the playoffs. I think I like the Lightning in this series against the Florida Panthers. I think I like the Lightning in a semifinal against either Carolina or New York. The only team that scares me in this entire bracket, going back to it, is the Colorado Avalanche. That's it. No other team scares me. Because after the Lightning doing that, getting past that powerhouse of a team in Toronto, I don't think anybody else really scares me up, for the rest of the way. The Florida Panthers, again, to me, they didn't seem built for the playoffs. And we saw Game 1 today, and both teams were slow. Both teams were lazy. That was not the Lightning that we've seen so far, and they still won 4-1. And just seeing that, because I know the Lightning played, because I've seen this team all year in the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, all right? That performance tonight from the Tampa Bay Lightning, you saw maybe 70% of what the team can be. In Game 4 of the Toronto series, that was a 100% Lightning team. We've seen it. This team can play to 100%. This was 70% at most tonight against the Florida Panthers, and they win 5-1 on the road in Sunrise. Both teams look completely lazy, and the Lightning still prevailed on top. So I feel really, really good along the rest of this way.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was thinking, like, even though it was a tough series for the Lightning against the Leafs, you said it well. I mean, the Leafs were a very, very good team, and whether or not they're cursed, I think, the fact that the Lightning even pushed us to game seven. I mean, I thought the Lightning had a very good chance at winning this series, given that they're playing a team that historically cannot win a first round, and the Lightning are back-to-back cup winners. But I was thinking, I mean, Toronto up 3-2 in the series. They lose in overtime. Okay, game seven, they tie the game up. And I just think the Lightning clutched up. I mean, Kucherov in the series, as you saw, he was pretty incredible. I mean, 10 points in the series. And I think, the Lightning had, they didn't have like one guy who necessarily led the pack with a lot of goals, like some of the other series, like Oshie did, or, with others, but they had clutch players step up. I mean, Nicholas Paul, a guy I barely even was aware of, with those 2 goals in the final game. I mean, that single-handedly saved you guys at the end there. And so, yeah, I
Absolutely.
think,
That game was all that game. What the final score was: Toronto 1, Nick Paul 2. That wasn't that wasn't the Lightning scoring those 2 goals.
yeah,
That was all Nick Paul. And I'll be real with you, I had no idea who he was until we traded for him. There's a good
yeah,
reason for that. He played for Ottawa. But that's
yeah,
besides the point. Nick Paul was lights out in this game, a career game, born and raised right outside of Toronto. So this was homecoming for him.
oh, okay, yeah, I didn't
And
know that.
it was just fun to watch that guy. I'm sure his jersey sales shot up after that game. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry, go on.
yeah. No, I just think it's cool. We're gonna have a battle of Alberta and a battle of Florida, and I think the interesting thing is, obviously, you guys played the Panthers last year, and I mean, I checked you guys in the regular season against the Panthers, or just in general, had 4 less points than them, but just only 1 less win. And although you stretch out the season this year, it's longer, and they obviously won the President's Trophy. I think you're right on the fact that they are just not well equipped for the playoffs like we would expect from a President's, well, I guess just a really good team in the regular season. With that being said, I think the Lightning are going to win this series given the game one. I mean, the fact that both teams were just not up to speed, so to speak, and the Lightning won pretty soundly. I think it's going to be a competitive series. It's definitely not going to steer necessarily one way, one direction, but I think the Lightning, I think, are the better team, even though their record wasn't quite where Florida's was. And I mean, I just think it's interesting that the Lightning had sort of a courageous, comeback against the Leafs, and while the Panthers just kind of hardly beat, the Capitals in round one, even though they did win in six. Like I said, a lot of these games were close. We very well could have had the Capitals in this, series against the Lightning, but I agree. I think the Lightning's path now, once they get past the Panthers, it's like they're sort of controlling their own destiny, so to speak, as I think they'd be the best remaining team in the East. I mean, obviously by record they would be, right? But I think really by star power in the East, I think they're a very talented team at this point. And I think I sort of like the brand of hockey they're playing. It's like sharing the puck well. I mean, it's not like other teams that just have like the Oilers, for example, that just have like one guy or one or two guys just controlling the whole pace of the game. It's like whenever you watch the Lightning playoff game, you would see a different goal scorer usually a lot. I mean, they had plenty of different goal scorers in this series. So I think, the Lightning, if they kind of keep this pace of just like having good puck control, Vasilevsky, continues to play well, I think the Lightning could win this. I could see this going to 7 games personally, but I think 6 is a good number. But I'm not going to count out the team with the best record. So, like, with that being said, so I think this series could go either way. I think I have the Lightning slightly more though, and I think they're going to win it in 7.
I don't know about you, but I felt like game one tonight between the two teams, I felt like it didn't feel like a playoff game at all to me. Like, it seemed like a lazy regular season matchup. Like, there was so much hype leading up till tonight because last year's series was so intense between the two. Heavy hits, fast pace. It was just slow and lazy from both sides tonight. Did not feel like a playoff game. But you're absolutely right about the Lightning controlling their own destiny. Except the difference is that I think right now they do. I don't think they have to get past Florida for them to feel that way. I think right now they control their own destiny. I don't think Florida lacks defense. bad. Like they're not good on defense. What propelled them to the President's Trophy this year was the powerhouse offense, the high scoring offense of their roster. Carter Verhaeghe, former Lightning player, has been incredible. They pick up Claude Giroux at the deadline. You know, they have star power, and they're scoring a ton of goals, and they just lack defense. They just lack defense, and that's why Washington almost exposed them. That's why the Lightning will expose them in this series. 4-1 tonight. Yeah. 4-1 tonight, and I'm looking forward to Game 2 on Thursday. But I have the Lightning winning this series, I think in 6.
Yeah. I could see that happening, for sure.
Carolina, Boston of the first round. This was a good series because it was just back and forth. I want to say Carolina went up 2-0, and then Boston won 2 in a row to tie it up, and then it was like a 1-1, and then it went to a Game 7.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. And the interesting thing, it was very like similar to that Minnesota series. It was just like 5-2 finish, 5-1, and it was just so back and forth, like you said. I mean, I think I expected Boston to be this aggressive, and I think I talked about it last video. But I think the Hurricanes are a very talented team, and I think this next series for them up ahead is going to be interesting. But yeah, what were you going to say? Sorry, cut you off.
Oh, I was just going to say, when Boston loses, the rest of the country wins, because that's all I cared about in Game 7. I was like, I'm not scared of the Bruins if the Lightning have to eventually face them. It's just I just don't like that city in their sports fan base. Like, just if they lose in the first round of Game 7, that brings a tear to my eye, and that's exactly what happened, and it definitely made my day.
Yeah,
that's all. But Carolina's good. I don't think they've dramatically improved from how they were last season when the Lightning beat them in 5 games in the second round, which is why I wouldn't fear them a whole lot if we have to play them in a semifinal. But, it was a very well evenly matched series between the two, Carolina and Boston, and in the end, Carolina just prevailed.
Yeah, they were clutch. I mean, I think they needed that. Antti Ranta had an incredible Game 7. And so I think for them, I mean, I think this next series is going to be really interesting, considering that these two teams, division rivals, and I feel like the Rangers are just like, I know we'll talk about that in a moment, but I think it's going to be, the Rangers are just like slightly better than the Penguins. And I think the Rangers are also better than the Bruins, I think, significantly. So I don't know. I think it's going to be good for them going forward. But no, I just think in general they had a really good series from Svechnikov. He clutched up. I think the Bruins, they made things interesting. Like, even the games they lost, that were close at least, they were close. Like, they were sometimes within like a goal in the final seconds. But I think Carolina, they're similar to some of the other teams on the board still, that they're determined. They've been here before. But like you said, I mean, for all the Lightning are concerned, I wouldn't worry about them. Just like you're saying, like, considering last year, and they didn't have many changes from last year. So I think that's definitely, something to take note of. But I think really in that series, it was very back and forth. It was a very exciting series. I'm happy Boston lost. I think whenever, like you said, a Boston team loses, it's, everywhere outside of Boston wins. But yeah, exactly. Great. But I just think, it was a good series. I mean, I think it was a very close one. I didn't expect it to go to 7. I thought maybe 6, but yeah, I think it was a good one. So, yeah.
The Rangers and the Penguins. The Rangers shocked me in this. Penguins go up 3-1, right?
Yeah.
Penguins go up 3-1, and then the Rangers come back 3 straight. Now, Pittsburgh was without Sidney Crosby, I think, in games 5 and 6, maybe have been 4, 5, 6. They were missing Sidney Crosby for a significant amount of time. And, of course, Tristan Jarry as well. They had Louis Domingue, the greatest backup goaltender of all time. He was a Lightning legend last year. But, I mean, what can you do? The Rangers somehow, some way, make it to the final 8 of this bracket. They're a team that nobody really. I mean, they're a very young team. They're a very young team, and I don't really know how many people expected them to make it to this point this season. Probably not a whole lot outside of New York, but the Rangers are here, and they're gonna get wiped by Carolina. I'm sorry, but I don't think they stand a chance. But listen, the thing is, the New York Rangers are too young and stupid to know that they're not supposed to be here. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like they don't care. Like they could put up a good fight against Carolina. You never know. I just don't see New York going to the semifinal. But seeing is the Lightning in the last 2 Eastern Conference Final Stanley Cup playoff years have played the New York Islanders. It could be fun to change it up and do the other New York team as well. Let's kick every New York team's ass every year. I think that'd be fun to witness. But no, I don't. It doesn't really matter. I think Carolina's gonna win in 5. I think the Pittsburgh Penguins should have won in 5, but injuries riddled them, and the New York took advantage. And they're a young team who now has extra motivation, propelling past Pittsburgh, overcoming a 3-1 series deficit.
By all means. Yeah, I mean, they definitely have momentum, but I think it's sort of the situation that you have to say, don't let the records fool you. I mean, these teams had very close records, but Carolina won the season series 3-1, and, they did so pretty easily. I think if the Rangers are going to have any sort of fight in this series, and by fight, I mean, like, winning at least 2 games, I think Igor Shesterkin is going to have, a very good series, close, near perfect. I think the Hurricanes are a very good team. They, the season series, that the head-to-head games speak for themselves, and I don't know if that's a completely valid thing to look at, but I think at the same time, it's like they played each other semi-recently and they're division rivals. But I think it's going to be a good series, entertainment-wise, because you have division rivals, the 2 top teams in the Metropolitan Division, and so I think for sure, it's going to be a good series. I think the Hurricanes, though, I think they're just better. I think an upset isn't out of question, but I just think in general, the Rangers they're young. I could see them getting past them in maybe years down the road. They do have momentum coming 3-1. In that Penguins series, Gensel had an amazing series for the Penguins, and it was a very good start for Pittsburgh, going up 3-1, but they just faded, and it was the kind of thing where the Rangers they wanted it more. And I think, sort of in this next series, it's going to come down to who wants it more. And, I'm going to tell you right now, I think the Hurricanes do, but I think really for the Rangers, they could shock people, but I don't have them winning more than 2 games. I think they're going to lose in 6. I got Carolina in 6.
I got Carolina in 5. But yeah, that's about it for the bracket. We've gone over all the round 1 matchups and the round 2 matchups and predictions. Just to recap a little bit, obviously we have the Avalanche over the St. Louis Blues. That's a given. I mean, are we are we fully in agreement across the board here?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all these, there's not one. I feel like in this series, it's sure an upset could happen on all these series, but I feel like there's one team in each. I guess Florida and Tampa is a pretty close matchup, and I guess Carolina Rangers, but I feel like it's pretty. I feel like we're on the same page. It's pretty obvious who we think.
I mean, as far as upsets go, what series in round 1 were considered upsets? Was it the Blues over Wild and the Rangers over Penguins? Is that it? I think the Maple Leafs actually were favored over the Lightning, but every year we get upsets. For example, last week the Canadiens over the frickin' Maple Leafs in round 1. Who expected that?
Yeah.
And the Golden Knights over the Avalanche was an upset, and they were upsets last year that were out of the blue. I don't think any of these are out of the blue. I think the Rangers beating Pittsburgh was about as big of an upset as you're going to see this playoffs. And even then, it's not whoa, I can't believe that happened. Because the Rangers had a good regular season. I mean, they had over 100 points, I believe, so it shouldn't be seen as a giant upset. It could be seen as an upset, but not as a giant one, at least in my eyes. So in this playoff, we really haven't seen a crazy upset. And I think it's going to stay that way, honestly, unless the Blues beat the Avalanche or the Rangers beat the Hurricanes. I don't really see an upset happening
Yeah,
anytime. It's really weird because I feel like every year it's just like some crazy shit happens, and this year we haven't really seen it.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, I just think I feel like you look at the round one matchups, and I'm glad we talked about them because it definitely influences how these second round ones will go. And also I just think it's we can kind of see who's emerging as a legit team and who's a pretender. Not to say that any of the teams remaining are don't deserve to be there, but I think it's like we kind of understand that like teams like the Oilers, for example, run into the same problem every year. It's like the kind of thing that's like you can try the same process over and over again. If it's not going to work, it's never going to work, right? So
Yeah.
it's just like the kind of thing that's like, there's certain teams here that we can. It's foreshadowing. We can just we know what's going to happen. We know the Oilers, are going to run into the same problem they did in past years, and we know, you know, other teams that have, like I don't know what other storylines have emerged, but
Yeah, really
that's
not a whole lot other than Jake Ottinger coming out of nowhere and
yeah,
Louis Domingue playing a couple games for the Penguins, and I don't
yeah.
know. So I gotta recall this because I don't quite remember. Who do you have again in the Lightning series? Are you taking Florida or Tampa?
I got you guys in 7.
Okay, fair enough. Shit, I'll take it. So that means we pretty much agree across the board then. We got
Yeah,
Avalanche, Flames, Tampa, Carolina. And,
yeah,
I mean, shit, I don't really see how. I don't know, man. I don't see any other of these series going any other way. I don't.
yeah, yeah. Same here. I mean, I'm glad we're on the same page here because I think it's pretty valid points here that we
Yeah,
brought up. So, yeah,
I agree. So, with that being said, I guess we'll catch you for the semifinal, the conference final games in about a week and a half from now, assuming that some of these series go to 7 games, which I think undoubtedly will happen at some point. But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll catch you then. But Casey, thanks for joining me again once
yeah.
today, and always fun to talk about sports with you, man. And so
Likewise.
it was a good stream, 52 minutes long and counting. And we'll catch you next week. This is Chiefs Rays Bolts, A's Raiders Dub Sharks. Peace out.